Some background now. Joining me is journalist and author Jacques Poe, who joins me on the line. Mr. Poe, thank you very much for your time. You've written a book on Ferdi Barnard and the crimes he committed. Remind us of the atrocities he caused and, importantly, whether he is remorseful about what he did.
Well, first of all, it's important to remember that although Ferdi Barnard was convicted of double murder in the Pretoria High Court in 1998, he was already by then a convicted murderer. He was convicted of double murder as well in the early 80s when he was a policeman, and he executed 2 drug dealers. He then received, for some or other reason, a very short prison sentence. But when he came out of prison, I think it was in 1985, he was almost immediately, he became a member of the CCB. Now, the CCB was the Defence Force Death Squad, who was responsible for the killings of people like David Webster and Anton Lubowski in Namibia. They blew off Albie Sachs's arm in Maputo, and they caused mayhem across the African continent. Now, Ferdi Barnard, on the 1st of May 1989, he shot, as you mentioned, he shot David Webster in cold blood in front of his house in Johannesburg. Webster was not an MK soldier. He was not a so-called terrorist. He was merely an activist that opposed apartheid, yet he paid for his life for it. The same with Anton Lubowski in Namibia, who was killed in September 1989. Ferdi Barnard was also involved in the planning of that hit. He was also involved in clubbing to death a drug dealer in an alleyway in Johannesburg, and he was convicted of a host of other crimes, ranging from robbery to theft to fraud. He's certainly a very, very dangerous man, and he is very, very violent. Now, he went to prison. He was arrested in 1996. He was then convicted in 1998. So he's been sitting in prison since 1996. That's, 23 years. Now, I don't know what 23 years in prison had done to Ferdi Barnard. The last time I saw him was in 2008 when he got married. He still wanted me to be, for other bizarre reason, he wanted me to be his best man at his wedding in Pretoria Central. But anyway, we don't know what 23 years in prison had done to Ferdi Barnard. I just hope and I trust that the parole board had made the right decision, that he's a rehabilitated man. He's now 60, 61, 62 years old around there, and that he's not violent anymore, because his whole adult life, the time he hasn't spent in prison, he has spent as a gangster, and a very notorious gangster by that.
Jacques, talk to me about his release today. Of course, as you mentioned, he's spent just about 23 years, given that he was serving already when he was convicted of the murders of David Webster and the other people that you've mentioned. Talk to me about what many South Africans are probably wondering at this stage, whether, his views have changed. You've certainly captured to some degree whether or not he is a kind of a person who has changed over time in prison. But the wonder for many people is perhaps what will his views be towards black people? He comes out into a completely different country.
The irony of Ferdi Barnard is that most of the people he killed were white. There was a stage when I knew Ferdi Barnard quite well, and I've never experienced him as a racist. I merely experienced him as a very, very violent and unstable man. So I don't think racism comes into it. Most of Barnard's murders, or at least the last murders, were all committed when he was sort of like under the influence of drugs. He was a very, very heavy cocaine user. He also used to smoke crack. So he's merely a very, very violent man. I don't think one can seem as a political assassin, for example. You know, he's not. He's the murders he committed wasn't politically motivated. I mean, I was astonished that Barnard actually got amnesty for the murder of David Webster. Because as far as I know, he committed David Webster because he got a production bonus. I think he was paid 60,000 rand for the murder of David Webster, and that's why he shot David Webster. So that murder wasn't politically motivated; it was financially motivated. So I don't think Ferdi Barnard as such can be branded as a racist. I mean, he might well be one, but I've never experienced him as such. Just as a very, very violent man. Now, Barnard got married in 2008. He got married to a woman called Betsy de Ridder, who's a businesswoman. She's got a degree in psychology, quite sophisticated. He got married to Betsy de Ridder, and I hope that has made a change in his life for the better. You know, as I say, he is 60 plus, you know, which is, you know, a bit old to still be a gangster. But I hope the parole board has done its job, that they're sure that Barnard will not commit a crime again. I hope he's undergone all his programs and rehabilitation workshops in prison, and that he's a changed man. Otherwise, he should not have been released. You know, so I'm not sure what kind of a man Ferdi Barnard is today, but maybe he has changed for the better. You know, hopefully he will be a bit like Eugene de Kock. You know, Eugene de Kock was released a few years ago, and he's disappeared completely from the radar. We don't know where he is, and we don't hear anything from him. And I hope it's going to be the same with Ferdi Barnard as well.
Well, Jacques, we're completely out of time. I would have wanted to ask you about where do you think he's going to be kept? As you mentioned, Eugene de Kock is out, and his whereabouts are unknown at this stage. It's interesting how these people and whether or not they can be reintegrated into society. But we'll leave it there for the time being.